business team, you're a broker. So, Andrea, what's that?
No, it's recording. So it was telling me that it was recording.
Okay.
Oh, great. Now it's
So-
untoward pressure, or it's even greater pressure on doing something untoward on the video, you know, something like that.
Yeah. And that's, I've forgotten about that, but obviously you do have to dress up a little bit from the head down to the waist for the Zoom calls, and you do have to shave, and you have to wash your hair, all that stuff. If you want to,
you got to represent business.
best chance. Yeah. You can even wear a tie, Ken, if you want, suit jacket and tie.
But no, but only underwear.
Yeah, right.
I'm always trying to get actually another meeting, like in person, or even because we rarely call at just the right time that they want to sell. Usually it's a period of time out, time out, like 3 months or a year, 3 years. But if it's a longer time out, make sure you can pin them down, can I call in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And I do find it's just an automatic, they start trusting you more, you just the more contacts you make. And so over time, and they start to remember you. And so that also builds trust. So it's rare that you call them up, yeah, I'm ready to sell. Well, that's not very common. So I don't try to get very
hold on one second.
personal.
Velma has been trying to reach me twice, so it must be
very important. Michael, you're breaking up too.
Am I? Okay.
Hello. I'm doing training right now.
Velma's the team leader in
Yeah.
Sacramento, in case you guys know.
Okay. Bye. Okay. Okay, so there's a lot of ways you can start the conversation, but I'd suggest, especially for the people that are doing it for the first time or the people who've gotten really rusty, that you just go back to the basics. I think probably all of us have been recently, it seems to have tapered off actually, but getting a dozen robocalls a day, and took a while before they got labeled as spam. But I mean, the robocall where it's dialed automatically, and then there's a delay, and then somebody starts speaking, and you want to distance yourself from that, of course, as much as possible. So one of the advantages of using like Sales Genie or whatever, in the old days we had to use Yellow Pages, and we didn't know the owner's name, so we just had to ask, may I speak to the owner, which is always risky. So and you'll find sometimes that Mr. So-and-so no longer here, and then you might ask who's the new owner, and oftentimes you'll get the answer. So I also found recently, maybe it's something to do with COVID, but don't have very many receptionists blocking your path. In fact, in many cases, we have, and that's what one of the advantages of the stuff on Team Magic is we actually have the owner's cell phone, which is usually very much preferred by the owner. Go back to the other page, Andrew. The couple of fail-safe strategies is that if you are dealing with an admin person or receptionist, you don't want to say, I want to talk to them about selling your business. That would really get the owner excited. So an acquisition, so it's a true statement, but not, it doesn't let the cat out of the bag. The thing I want to stress mostly, though, is that you want to be direct and get to the point while you're making the call. Now, I get a lot of calls from people telemarketing or trying to sell me something, and they want to know, well, how's it going for you today? Don't say that stuff. Yeah, it's labels you right off the bat as a
Right.
telemarketer or a salesperson, because the truth is nobody really cares how I'm
No,
going today. Certainly
Don't
not a
ask.
stranger.
don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
true.
It is true.
Get
To the point.
So the last few paragraphs there, the word of caution about them, you can, they're borderline sales pressure, and you have to size up whether the potential client is ready for it. And really depends on how the conversation is going. But as those of us who've done this for a little bit know that there's a huge procrastination factor for business owners. And I've especially lately run into dozens and dozens of business owners who waited too damn long to start the process, and have either eliminated the chance of selling it altogether, or have taken are going to take a big hit. A prime example is that new business, Live Rocks, that I listed. A year ago, she was on a run rate of making about 250,000 profit, and now she's down to maybe making 100,000 profit, all in the space of 6 months.
Wow.
And the only reason was because she just got tired of the business and got busy doing other things and let it slide. But one fairly useful sort of nudge is, if it's true, if you're calling a machine shop, for example, and you actually have a buyer for a machine shop that you've talked to, somebody's ad calls, like Laurie, I'm sure you, I think you use that as a leverage tool to get a listing of a machine shop, right? And it works. It does create a little bit of urgency, and it also tends to maybe think you're a little bit more real. Okay, another approach is that we just listed machine shop, and we're getting a ton of activity on it. In fact, we have 2 offers, so I wanted to check to see if you had any interest in selling, or if you knew of anybody else that was selling. Any questions about that? the other, the bottom three paragraphs require a little bit more agility, on a little bit lighter on your feet. And you definitely don't want to cross over the line, you know, BS or sounding like it's BS. Okay, next slide. Andrea, did you get a hold of Shauna? Yes? No?
For the video, no, I haven't. I think she's busy, but I was just on my phone and I think I can do the disconnect the whole thing for the video. So let me know before we're done. I think we'll be able to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. How many of you veterans are prospecting FSBOs for sale by owners?
I don't know.
Boy, unanimous, huh?
Um,
Unanimously not.
I guess I don't. I know there's a website for it. I just never looked at it. I already find, to me, they are already trying to go around a broker. They don't want to pay.
No,
That I know, but that's what I believe.
that-
But they're already going around us, and it's like
No,
they don't
that's-
want to pay. So
that's true for some of them, for sure. But even the people, first off, very few people are successful
Mhm.
on their own FSBOs. So sooner or later, they're going to get discouraged and they're going to be much more receptive. They realize that the rate they're going, they're not going to sell it. So yeah, you can tell a FSBO by, you know, that there's no broker involved. That's on the websites.
yes,
You have to you have to peruse the websites and look for listings that don't have a broker. And it's when you call people out of the blue, like cold calling, you know, you're going to get maybe one lead out of 25 or 50 calls. When you call FSBOs, you're probably going to get 1 out of 3 calls.
is there a
so-
website dedicated to for sale by?
I don't think so.
Okay. I was just
Maybe
curious.
what's it called?
Craigslist.
Yeah, Craigslist. Right.
When it
And-
touches
and-
me.
And yeah, I think most of the businesses on Craigslist, maybe somebody knows for sure, but I think most of them are fairly small.
Yeah, when it
but
touches
still.
me.
Uh,
Does
and,
BizBin or those sites have something that says it's by owner or anything like that?
not that I know of. But
It's more
But if
that
there's no
it
broker, you
says
can-
that it is whether there is a broker or not. So if there's not a broker, it is, but it's just kind of weird the other way.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I encourage you to deploy that. And unless you already have 20 listings, Michael, you might want to reach out to some FSBOs.
Do we have our individual agents? Can we log in using do the agents have business team agents have a BizBin account? We used to be able to log in a long time ago. I don't know if it's the same now.
No, you can see, you can place we have a deal with BizBand
Right,
where you can get so many ads.
right, for ads, but
a
just to log in,
discounted
go
price.
search. Well, I guess you could just
Yeah.
go into the general site and see it too. It should work that way. Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
BizBin would probably be the best one for local. at least here in
The
Bay Area.
Yeah. You know, I've run across owners of businesses, fairly larger businesses, that have put the job, given their CPA the job of selling the business.
Yeah.
And I can't, I mean, not to offend anybody who is a CPA, we have at least two of them aboard here. But I can't imagine anybody doing a less effective job than CPA. But of course, it's a hard thing to say. You know, hey, Michael, that CPA you hired, he's never going to do a goddamn thing. Pitch him, let me take over. It's a tough argument to make.
CPA.
So that's just an
one
example of the schedule of the business plan execution. And this is what we go over every 2 weeks and see who's sloughing off. Okay, next.
What is this?
Okay. So this is an example of a telemarketing lead that when we go down to the last page, we'll see when it started. I can't quite read the type there. But,
I can't read it.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Large.
blown up enlarged. But
Yeah.
so this is a guy that has some kind of distribution, freight forwarding kind of business. And I think Julie probably first started talking to him in
Yes.
2015 or something like that, or maybe earlier. And I actually even visited the place. This is before COVID. I actually did visit the place. It's a good sized business. But he never could make up his mind. He just talked about interest in selling, but never I'd gotten as far as giving him a engagement agreement, so forth, years ago. So, but then in one of the follow-up calls, he says, you know, my son wants to sell his business. And this was another business that I wound up listing and never seeing the business and selling it. I guess it was last year. His son who's deaf and dumb, has this windshield replacement business for 10 years. Very profitable. I think he was doing about 500,000 and netting about 250 for a one-man show. But the one-man show made it very hard to sell, right? Yeah. So what's that? Somebody's muted there. Anyway, we wound up selling. So the point I'm making is that you never know where these leads, where this Team Magic telemarketing database is going to provide some fruit for you. Now, I don't know if it's this one, but many of them that I get, I see, and this is a warning to you all, that that somebody else has talked to this person a long time ago, and they didn't follow up. And so when the lead comes up for prospecting, the telemarketer will not call if I think it's 6 months, if nothing has been entered into it in 6 months. So after that, it's open season. So that person, it might have been Tony, I'm not sure, but that person should be touching base in some way every 6 months to keep the lead alive. And if he had, he would have gotten that windshield business, which actually sold for $450,000, which was very surprising. So looks like
You've been talking
me
to
see.
them since 2013, you and Julie, yes.
2013. Okay, all right.
Wow, yeah.
So, okay, any questions about the how these are generated or so you either have to, so if Julie makes the lead for you or Monisha and out of Team Magic, that you'll get the beginning of this report. And you can also, the notes of the conversation, like we were talking about earlier, you had some kind of bonding conversation. You can look at your notes and refresh yourself, and then make the follow-up call. That to me is the big value, because it may be my ancient my age, but with hundreds of leads like this that I have, I can't remember every intimate detail. So, but with a 30-second scan, I can sound like I've been thinking about this guy my whole life. So, I don't know if that's cheating, but that's the way I do it. So, okay, next. Are any of you using the lip? Okay, good, Lori. Again, it's a way of amassing data for your listing, and you're assuming that sooner or later you're going to convert this to a listing. The downside is you don't, and you've spent a few minutes putting it into lip and saving all that data. But so when I start having a conversation with the seller, and perhaps he starts sending me financial information, and those of you who've been around a while know sometimes there's a great lag between getting financial information and actually getting the listing, right? And so, but if you've had the financial information, there's no sense discarding it or storing it someplace where you can't follow up. So about every 30 days or 60 days, I go through this. I use Monisha to help me and see what needs to be done to follow up on these lips. So you can import all your notes from Team Magic, and you can store your 3 years tax returns or whatever. So, and then when you do get it listed, you can convert it in a keystroke to a listing. Any questions about that? Again, this is really just data management to make you more effective. So, okay, next. Again, you may need to have your team leader or Andrea or somebody give you a hand for your first ones. Okay, next. Okay. All right. These are again some telemarketing ideas for you, scripts. By the way, you were talking about FISBO. One of the things that actually gets me interested, especially, is my business is listed, and because I'm betting that the person who has it listed is not going to sell it, and and I've found many, many times, by the time I call, the seller is really disgruntled with his listing agent. Maybe for good reason, because the listing agent hasn't serviced, or maybe because, you know, the listing agent hasn't brought him a buyer, even though it's priced 3 times higher than it should be. Okay, Andrea, back to the slides. Okay, next. So here's some objections, and again, I think you should refresh yourself on these, because it's kind of like being on stage. You've got to be cool and calm about the response, and not nervous, but you have to have it you have to have your lines memorized pretty well. I mean, not necessarily word for word, but you can't hem and haw about it. So a common one: how much do you charge? And you can truthfully say, our fees vary depending on the service we provide. And then the classic sales is, you get a question asked and you flip it around and ask a question, right? So it's now the ball is in the client's court, would be seller's court. Length of contract, same thing. And the process is something now that I've elaborated on considerably. And it's in this is an outline of it. So the first thing I sell really is the market analysis, and I emphasize that there's no fee or obligation, and I explain. You all probably know how market analysis is done, but I explain it to the client in some detail, so they can get the sense of value for it. And I know some people have gone even further and offered to do a peer comps. I know Tony was a big fan of that because it separates you from the competition. And then once we have the market analysis, we make a decision about whether to move forward or not, sign an agreement, says you'll pay us when we're successful. Then the next step is to put together a complete package, and I explain why the package is so necessary and useful, because in that process I get to learn everything about the business, so I can do a good job of communicating that information to the 70 business team agents. And then I talk about the presentation and getting agents' comments and reviews, and I talk about going into 12 different websites and how we get thousands, very quickly, thousands of views and hundreds of inquiries. And I think a lot of sellers don't realize just how much goes into it or what the benefit is. And I think the mistake business brokers make sometimes is trying to close for the listing without the benefits. So sometimes I don't get asked what is the process, but I make them ask me. Says, would you like to hear brief overview of the process? And they always say yes. So here's a chance for you to start demonstrating value. There's some other questions: upfront fee, we don't, so forth. Next. And here's some typical examples of objections and some answers for them. And I think we've covered really them, but
One other thing, when you talking to the sellers, if you're doing, if they're doing what you just showed, you also can point out some of the things that are tough about the business. Like in retail, if they have multiple locations, like I had one retailer that had 8 locations, well, that's 8 leases. And this guy was paying $700,000 plus a year in rent. I said, well, that will be a negative to any buyer. So you don't quite sound like a salesperson if you point out things that a buyer will have issue with that has to be overcome. And the seller in that commented that no other agent even said anything about that. So you sound more authentic, that you're looking at the whole thing. It's not just a sales job.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure about introducing negatives. I especially.
I am
don't-
big
don't
on that.
have
I am big.
Okay, next slide. I don't think we're gonna make it all the way through because you think we're ready for the Julie's? Okay. You can read all this stuff on your own. You have a copy that
Okay.
and okay, let's
Yeah, we have two ways to do it, so it should work either or, no matter what. Otherwise,
well, you pick it.
okay, let's see. Sorry, I
Oh,
just want to record you
okay.
because you are so awesome.
Oh, no.
Did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to put got it. Okay. Yeah, Andrea asked me to come on and talk about the records when you call through the TM system so that everyone can know how to fill it out properly. And so briefly, I'll just talk about that. And then I have 2 tips and 2 words of advice. So, okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, wait. All right. Okay. Okay, I've put up a record. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, basically, you probably know this already, but the top part you save by pressing the word save. The bottom part you save by pressing the word add note. There won't be a lot that you put on the top part, except that when you are talking to a receptionist, it's really helpful to say at the end, is she the only owner? And then you can put only owner in the comments so that the next person that calls can know that that is the owner, because we only want to speak with owners. On the bottom part, I'm having trouble finding my little scrolling thing because all your pictures are there. But anyway, at the bottom part, you see the abbreviations, and most of your notes will be on call back. Things like GVM for general voicemail and not in and not available and all of that. And then there's left message on voicemail. There's also left message, and I use that when I leave messages for a receptionist. When I leave messages with a receptionist. Now, the wrong information, that's for things like when the number is not in service or the company is closed, it's no longer there. And I prefer that nobody use that for anything else, because those get purged once a year and we don't want any records to get purged. So that's basically it. So my couple of words of advice are that you can do follow-up calls with the system. If down here, and I can't seem to scroll, but oh, here we go. Now, let's say this record had a not interested in the past. So what you can do is you can call, and instead of launching into hopefully your short regular script that you've come up with, you'll be able to say, back in, December of 2020, you spoke to Manisha Rebello in our firm and said that you were not ready to sell your business. And I would like to know if you are currently considering selling your business. I get a lot of leads this way because this warms up a call, and that they know that somebody has spoken with them before. So that is really helpful. You can do the same thing if it says INT, interested. And if it's over a year old, especially if it's several years old, because unfortunately, several years ago, a lot of the agents didn't even call. And so you can call and say, you spoke with so-and-so in 2017, and they were going to have XYZ agent give you a call, and I'm wondering if they ever called you. And sometimes they'll say no, or they'll say, I don't remember that. And then you can say, well, wanted to check with you to see if perhaps you have considered selling your business. And that's also very successful because they feel that they've said yes before, they may still be interested, and now they know that somebody will call them. So those are a couple of tips about the follow-up calls. Now, I wanted to talk about when owners say no, there's more than one kind of no. And one kind of no to pay attention to is when they say no, not right now. If they say that, then don't just hang up. Say, well, when you say it like that, is it something that perhaps you may be interested in, let's say between now and the next 12 months from now? And very often they will say yes, because sometimes when I call, they think an agent will call them tomorrow and they'll be done tomorrow. And they're way too busy for that. And so when they know that they want to sell the business in the next year, and that's acceptable with us, then that also is very successful. And then my couple words of advice. My main advice is to keep following up. Because even though many owners have cold feet, in fact, cold feet is the most common condition physically that we come up with an owner. I mean, they said yes to me, or they'll say yes to you, but the next time you talk to them, they want to pull back. And sometimes, again, it's because they think you mean tomorrow. And so, but keep following up. I am very involved with doing Ian's biz besides calling for the agents. And there have been times that I've called once a year people that for like 10 or 11 years. And then they finally say, well, yes, I'm interested. So it's really worth to follow up. And
Yeah,
then
I might add
Yeah.
that, Julie mentioned she's done a lot of calling for me, and many of the leads that get turned over to me originated with somebody else some time ago, but they did not follow up. They didn't keep in touch. You can see in this one here that there was Tony Moran in 2021, Connie Kelly way back in, of course she's no longer with us, but way back in 2015. And for this particular client who's a CPA, we built up a long history. There's no question about establishing our longevity with that client.
Yeah,
So,
and that's one of the advantages of this system, because you can go back in time and see what has happened, where you can't do that in a cold call you just are doing from a list. So I really think this calling from the TM is really valuable. And the only other thing I would want to say is that the bottom line of what we do is that every owner was created by God, and they're They all deserve our respect. And that makes a big difference. Sometimes I talk to owners that, well, I mean, if they're offensive, that's one thing, but sometimes they're just not very nice. And sometimes I sort of respect them and nice them into talking. And at the end, especially if they're interested, they will say, oh, thank you so much for calling. So that is kind of the bottom line, I would say, of what we do, is that we want to respect everyone that we talk to. And that's all I have. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you,
Really
Julie.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone have
there's a little-
questions for Julie? I'm sorry, Ian. Go ahead.
There's a little story to tell, how we're actually doing service to the client. This particular story doesn't look like it's going to end well, but Julie sent me a note to call somebody, and I called yesterday the cell phone, and it was answered by the person's brother, and so I asked what happened, and he said he's in hospice. The seller is in hospice, terminally ill, and so we've been calling him for a long time, but like Julie said, some people have their cold feet, and it sounds like literally his feet are going to be very cold in another few months, 6 feet under. But we tried. We've been calling him for a long time. He kept putting us off, and so Julie is doing a service for the universe of business owners out there who need a little pushing and shoving, or warming of their cold feet anyway.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very much, Julie. Yeah.
Thanks.
Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks.
All right, and Andrea,
Anything for Julie, everyone? Any questions?
Let's
get rid of that. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Well, didn't quite get through everything, but any particular questions anybody has? You can see from that video why Julie is so loved by the clients.
And everybody. We love
Manisha
her.
does very well also. She's got a very gentle manner. Well, no questions? Okay, well, thank you. And hopefully this will create a big surge in your output in terms of listings, or at least convinced you that listings are important and that you have the skill and tools to get them. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Oh, you're very fine. Let me just.
Yeah, I've been there for a while, Andrea.
Yeah, because the thing is that if you guys are not in the video, that computer will not show me that you guys are
No,
here.
I'm on video. I was on video.
Good. Perfect. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys. I will send you the video as well. And just remember, keep calling. Some of the new kids in San Francisco are been doing the letters, and we from 100 every week, we've been getting back at least 22. So I don't know, just call, guys. I know it's crazy, but cool, just start calling. In 2 weeks, you guys will be a pro, just like Julie. Well, not that pro, but it'll be good.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a lovely Thursday. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Bye-bye.
And you too, Ian. Enjoy being dry for a little while.
Bye,
And
Andrea.
like Ken say, if you guys follow up, you guys.
I'm gonna follow up with you, Andrea.
Yeah. Bye, you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, Ron. Bye, Jeff.